Well, thank you, Ali, and thank you to your dean. Nikolai has been so nice to me since morning. I don't know what you gave him, but he took good care of me, picked me up, and even took me to take a nap this afternoon. What I'm going to try to do tonight is take you on a journey to my village. So I'm going to transport you from Little Rock, Arkansas, and take you all the way to my village in Uganda, and then we'll come back and you ask me questions, and you buy books, and I'll sign the books, and then we'll get more students, and we'll get more people in this Little Rock, Arkansas city to get involved in our work. But before I do that, let me also say that Little Rock, Arkansas has a special place in my heart because when you read this book, you find out that my wonderful wife, Beronda Montgomery, is born here in Little Rock and went to Central High School. And actually, during lunchtime, I went and visited with her family in Mapleville, Arkansas. So there is a deep connection here, and there is also a deep connection with the name Bill Clinton, because in 2008, he personally invited me to the Clinton Global Initiative and met the man. I understand he's in town. He didn't tell me we're going to meet here. But I've met a man and I admire him and I admire the work he's done. And hope, I told one of the volunteers, I wish I had one of those ties that say hope. Well, we've been asked to speak for 30 minutes. 30 minutes summarize my background, 40 years in 30 minutes, and a book of those many pages in 30 minutes. So if I go a little bit over, I'm warning you, please don't be mad at me. All right? Born and raised in a tiny village called Nyaka. Nyaka is a word that means, it's a short word for Nyakajezi. Nyakajezi is a word that means land of the hills. So if you go to Uganda, and those who have been there, Nathaniel, who is in the audience, has been to Uganda, Ali has been to Uganda, they will tell you the people they have met walk a lot, and they walk up and down the hills. That's the name Nyakajezi. I was born, the last born of 5 children, to wonderful, wonderful parents who are still alive today. I know we are going to talk about children who are orphaned due to HIV and AIDS, and I am not an orphan. My parents are still alive. One of 5 children, and that was, my parents were kind of economical in children, in producing children. That's unheard of in our village for a family to have 5 children. Many of them have 14, 16, 18. My parents, I think after having me and being such a stubborn kid, they could not have another child. So they stopped right there. My parents have never had a job. They are not educated. None of my parents have ever stepped in a classroom. The only school they have ever been to is the school I started. So they don't read and write English, but they do read local language called Ruchiga. And when you read the book, you find out some words in Ruchiga, like Tata means daddy and Mama means mommy. But my parents were committed, not because they had means to, committed to send all 5 of us to school. They've never had a job, still now. They don't earn any money, but in Uganda, to send a child to school, you must pay for that child. So a few things we are going to remember tonight. Education in Uganda is paid for. You must pay to go to school. On top of paying, you must wear a school uniform. Like that purple and white is the school uniform for Nyaka. If a child comes to school and they don't have a school uniform, the teacher will send them home. And you must buy your books and pencils and everything that comes with it. But on top of that, education in Uganda also, you must pass your exam from one level to another. You pay to go to school, and when you get to school, each year to go from one level to the next one, you must pass your exam. The teacher has an average of 60. If you don't get an average of 60, you repeat a classroom. And for people who had parents like mine, you better not bring a report home where you have failed after dad has sold a chicken so you can go to school. So with parents who are poor, an environment like that, committed to send children to school, people ask me then, why do they do it? To send a child to school is an investment. Your parents will send you to school so you can graduate, get a job, and take care of them. And because of that, my parents sold their chicken to send 5 children to school, and the chicken ran out of the house. No more chicken. They went to goats, and the goats ran out. They started on cows, and the cows ran out, and they went to the most precious asset an African man owns, which is land. When a man cuts his land and sells it, you know they have got to a point where they should not do it, but for education purposes, my parents did it. So here I am, 4.5 years old. The story I'm going to say now is in the book. 4.5 years old, wake up early in the morning, and my sisters are getting ready to go to school, and they've been going to school all these years. I've been watching them wear their uniform and get their pencils and go to school. And Jackson, I decided I'm going to go to school and follow my sisters this morning. I tried several times, couldn't do it. Whenever they saw me walking behind them, they would run. And I would run and get tired and go back home, and my dad would say, why were you trying to go to school? And gave me a spanking. He tried several times. This one day I wake up and I said, I'm going to pretend today that I'm a goat. And I will sneak behind behind my sisters and go to school. I didn't know that the school was 7.5 miles away. And to get to this school, you would have to cross 2 streams. And it was a rainy season. And it is cold in the morning. And here I was, Jackson, 4.5 years old, tripping behind. My sisters look behind, and I hide behind the bushes. And I made it to school that day. And that's the first time I found out that to go to school, you must wear a uniform. Because when I got to school, in my shorts, and I think it had like a big hole on the back, I looked around, and all the kids were dressed in white and khakis. And there I was. And I hid behind the classroom and looked in the classroom, and they are teaching 1 and 2. I don't know what this means. And before I knew it, I heard a voice behind me, Twesije Jackson Kaguri. Now, if my dad used your 3 names, that was trouble, and he was standing behind me. My dad took me home that day, 7.5 miles walked without saying a word. When we got home, he said, Jackson? I said, yes. You keep insisting to go to school. At school, you must pass exams to go from one level to another. School begins at 6 years old. You have 2 years to go to school. But you keep insisting, so I'm going to make a deal with you. So I signed my first contract agreement with my father at 4.5 years old. He said, I'm going to send you to school. I'll buy you a uniform. But if you ever fail an exam, you will never go back to school. Do you understand? Say, yes, Daddy. Do you want to go to school? Yes. I think he was wishing I would say no. I said, yes. Next morning, he went to the tailor, they measured me, they gave me a khaki and this big shirt, and the pants were going down, and I went to school at 4.5 years old, and from that day to today, I've never failed an exam in my entire life, including the driving license. Because each time I sit down to do an exam, what comes to my mind is my daddy's voice. If you ever fail an exam, you'll never go back to school. So I excelled in school, did very well, pressure of daddy. Each time I would bring back a report card, I would come running, Daddy, yeah, I have my report. And he would look at it, Jackson Kaguri, first in class, and I'd go, yeah. My dad never cheered up, even when I got into Columbia University. You know what I'm talking about. My dad looking at a report with a passing grade meant another goat was going to leave the house. It meant another cow is gone. When I passed going to high school, now it's a boarding school, it meant land is going to be cut more half of our land is gone because I'm going to high school. So I went through school, I went to Makerere University, my second year at university, and when I got to university, I performed at a high level that the government paid my university education. So you have it in reverse here. Free education in elementary school through high school, and then you pay in the university. Uganda was so smart. They know that many kids will go to school at elementary through high school, so they make you pay for that. And after they have this cream of the crop who have passed their exams, tiny majority, tiny number of people, then they pay for it. So they paid for my education at university. In my second year at university, we got a lecturer who came from, I think he was from Kenya, Human Rights Commission, and he came to make a presentation about human rights. Guest speaker, and he came with this chart, gross chart, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, put it in front of us and had all these articles, you know, all 25 of them. One of them, every child, every human being has a right to education. And I'm looking up and I said, excuse me, sir. I say, yes. Does it say all human beings? And he said, yes. I said, in my village, people don't have education opportunities. In my village, men wake up anytime they want and beat on their wives, the lights out of them. In my village, girls don't go to school. In my village, there is no housing. Unless I'm not reading this chart right, or unless people in my village are not human beings, this chart does not represent the people where I come from, and therefore it can't be all human beings. Said, you're a stubborn guy, but I hear your question. And that introduced me to the concept of human rights. I started working with the human rights organization. I wrote many essays on women and children rights, on men in my village taking their girls out of school so a boy would go, on why my parents would keep my sisters home, older, I'm the youngest, keep my sisters home to take care of my sick mom, and Jackson would go to school. Why Jackson would get a uniform and not my sisters. And those several essays eventually got me to see an application to study human rights at Columbia University in New York. And this application was such a long application. It said you have to be 46 years old, you must be a lawyer and practitioner, blah, 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 blah. Lots of verbiage, but at the end of it, it had what you call fine print in America. You will have to write an essay. And it was an East African competition. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Sudan, Rwanda, all those Great Lakes countries. And my roommate at university, I remember him telling me, Jackson, you don't qualify to even apply. So, well, I will try. But behind my head was that voice of my father. You better pass your exam or you'll never go back to school. I wrote a personal essay about my sisters and my mother, personal testimony in an essay form, and sent it to Columbia. And on a January day in 1995, I got an admission to Columbia University. And I packed my one case and walked out of Uganda and got on a plane for the first time and arrived in New York in a short-sleeved shirt on a January 16th day. There was a storm, and I walked out of JF Kennedy with my case, and the taximan looked at me and said, "Young man, where's your coat?" I said, "Nobody told me about a coat." I said, "It is winter in America." "What is winter?" They told me about snow. Now I live in Michigan. I know what snow is. But ladies and gentlemen, getting into Columbia University opened all these wonderful opportunities and wonderful networks that started the journey in human rights and internships at United Nations. But as I was finishing Columbia University, going back home, preparing to go back home, my brother, the first in the family, was dying of HIV and AIDS. And that was the turning point. Yes, I had gone to school with people in my village who could not continue going through school. Yes, I had seen poverty and many children who were out of school. Yes, some of my classmates dropped out of school in my village because they could not afford a pencil. A pencil, number 2 pencil, in Uganda will cost you 2 cents, equivalent of 2 cents American money. But children every day, when I went to school and today, will drop out of school because they cannot afford a pencil. And if you come in a classroom, I saw some of you are teachers, and you don't have a pencil, even today, the teacher will send you home. My dad would buy a number 1, number 2 pencil and cut it 5 times. And I play golf now. And each time I'm playing golf, that's where I got this, by the way. Each time I'm playing golf and I see this pencil, like this one, or in the church pulpit behind, where they want you to fill that envelope, all I think about are children who are dropping out of school because they can't afford that pencil. And so my brother is dying. He's on a deathbed in Uganda. I went back to Uganda, and the last 2 weeks of his life I was with him. My brother was a married man. He was a church man. He was everything you would want in a mentor and a caring person. I have a chapter in the book talking about my brother Frank. And he's dying, and all he tells me is take care of my children. As the youngest child in the family, a boy who had a job, it became my responsibility now to take care of my nieces and nephews. As we finished burying my brother, my sister told my mom she also had HIV and AIDS. And she died 6 months later, leaving a son who had contracted HIV AIDS from her. That is a tragedy many women are still going on today. 1,400 mothers, every 1,400 mothers every 24 hours pass HIV AIDS to their unborn children. Now, there is medicine to stop that. That medicine is called nevirapine. Nevirapine is medicine that would stop transmission from a pregnant woman to unborn child. That medicine in Uganda costs $1, $1. Remember, one child will drop out of school because they don't have a pencil, and now a mother will pass HIV AIDS to their unborn child because they cannot afford $1. $1, that is 2,000 Uganda shillings. And the same in Kenya, the same in Senegal, the same in these sub-Saharan Africa countries. My sister was one of those. Passed HIV AIDS to my nephew, and my nephew died when he was 3 years old. And the responsibility of now taking care of my nieces and nephews on this young man who just came back from America with all this hope of buying a car and marrying a beautiful woman and having a good time and have a job and do whatever you want to do. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a father of 4 children, one who is dying of HIV AIDS, and their mother has HIV and AIDS, and she needs ARVs. They need rent, they need pencils, they need uniform, they need all these. I am all of a sudden, uncle, I need this, I need this. But each Christmas in Uganda is different from Christmas in America. Ours is go and marry and all families get together and eat. There is no exchange of gifts. So this Christmas, give all your gifts to Nyaka students. Don't exchange them. You can become Ugandans, since I transported you to Uganda. Each Christmas, I would take these children to go to my parents' house. And I'm going to demonstrate to you where this house is. When Ali tells you Nyaka, and she went to Nyaka, you will see a map here, and it's going to be a map of Uganda. I don't think there's something to click here. Oh, there is. Wonderful. There is Kampala somewhere around here. Where is it? Right here. Kampala is the capital city of Uganda. Nyaka, the land of the hills we are talking about, is right here. This is the route. Kampala, Nyaka, right here. When you go to Kampala here, it's going not to be different from your downtown Little Rock. You will see Lexus cars, you see 4-wheel drives, you see people on cell phones, everything is cozy and good, people make money, businessmen, they do well. The more you leave Kampala going this side, you are going to start in Kampala, which is right here on that map, and when you drive 2 hours, this landscape is going to start changing and access to anything will start changing too. By the time you get 3 hours in your journey, the cars are going to be different. All of a sudden, they are now all dusty. All of a sudden, now they are pampering and there's all these fumes. Then you will go after 5, 6 hours around here, the whole thing of poverty you hear and read and see on National Geographic, you start witnessing it right here. The cell phone is going to lose. Satellite is not there anymore. Life changes completely. The more you go out of Kampala, going towards here, you get to this place called Rukunji, and you are out of nowhere. There's no running water, no electricity. It is dark, it is bushy, it is grass-thatched houses. You are out of nowhere. Now, after you reach that place, you have 2 more hours, and you are at Nyaka School. Yes. It is isolated, it is poor, it is that bad. But the problem is, people who move from all these parts of Uganda to come and look for jobs in the city, in Kampala, to look for jobs for education opportunities, when they die, mainly of HIV, AIDS, and other diseases, their bodies, dead bodies, their children left behind and their wives left behind are transported back to these villages. So you have an rural-urban movement when people are alive looking for jobs, and when they die, now you have dead bodies going from urban to rural. And when those trucks take these children and wives and everybody left, they go full of children, they come back empty. Why? Because the man had a job. In this case, my brother had a job, worked there. If I didn't take care of my nieces and nephews, they would have been left in the village, out of nowhere here with my parents to raise them. The burden of grandmothers and grandparents. as I would drive my nieces and nephews from here to here for Christmas, each time we got home, thousands of grandmothers who had seen Jackson grow up, who had known about the agreement between me and my father, and saw me defy that agreement and pass all my exams, knew that I knew the value of education. So they would bring their children asking for a pencil, a paper, a uniform, so they can send their children to school. These grandmothers would come asking for so many different things, and they would form lines and lines of children basically asking, can we go to school? Can you help us in this way or the other? And I would pass pencils, I would pass books. But after so many years of doing that, one day while we were there in 2001, with my wife at the time, and we said, instead of passing pencils over and over, why don't we build our own school and have more children in the school? And that is how Nyaka was built. That's how we started Nyaka as a school, and now what I'm going to do is bring you back to Little Rock, and we can watch pictures of these children through slides quickly, because I'm beginning to see looks of you are running out of time. So here we are, that's how Nyaka started. Kampala is here again, and Kanungu is here where the school is. That's one school is here, and another school is going to be in Rukunjiri district. Kanungu and Rukunjiri. For those of you who want to know more geography, that is Democratic Republic of Congo here, Sudan is going to be here, Kenya is here, Lake Victoria, Kenya, Rwanda. So we are in that border where we even have an overflow of people from Rwanda through the genocide. So the school started in 2003. Here I was a young man, as lines would form after the concept of building a school started. As soon as I would arrive in the village, people would come to ask me questions about this wonderful America where I had gone to study. Because the misconception is every person in America is at the reaches of Bill Gates. So they would say, Jackson, these people must have given you a lot of money to bring back. We want part of it. And whenever they would say that, I would say, grab a hoe, grab something, let's go dig the foundation for the school as we talk about this money. To them, I would go to your trash can and get a Mercedes-Benz. If I go to hers and I will get whatever I want, money is there, collect it and bring it. The foundation of the school and everything that went with it was done for free. People donated their resources, their stones, and this is something we had in 2003. The beginning of Nyaka, the two looms that we talk about, this is how the school opened on January 2nd, 2003. That is how the school looks like in 2009. From the tiny two buildings to this. How did it jump from there to there? As soon as the school started in Uganda, every human being I met, whether it was in a taxi or in a bus or in a soccer field, I told them about what we are doing. And people would ask, what can I do? I said, make a donation. How can I make a donation? Is it going to be tax deductible? I said, what is that? Then I would go and do research that night, tax deductible. And then we registered an organization, 501c, and raised money. That's when I went to Uganda, that's how the school looked like. The school in 2003, that is the first graduation of the school. Jump from that humble beginning to here, children graduating. Now let me tell you something about these children you see in front of you. A tiny village like ours, children in that tiny village, including myself, sits for the same national exam kids sit for in the capital city. One exam. So the trend is everybody in the rural village fails the exam, always. In fact, in 1983, when I sat for that exam, I was the only child among 250 students who sat for that exam that year to pass it. One. Jumped to 2009, when our students sat for that exam, 22 sat for that exam, 21 passed it. In 2010, 26 sat, 26 passed it. Now the interesting part, since we are talking at a school, a prestigious school, Clinton School of Public Service, interesting part, there's a student somewhere here. In 1983, when I sat for that exam, I got 98, 99, 98, 100. And that record of mine stood until 2009, a school I started myself. A student from there came back and broke that record. Students who would have never had an opportunity to go to school if it was not for Nyaka are the ones now performing the highest in the whole district. That's a picture we took last week. I was in Uganda. Those are the students at Nyaka School. That's the headmaster at Nyaka School. That's some of the staff at Nyaka School. Nyaka School also has done that well because we've taken a holistic approach of looking at a student not just for education in a classroom, but other things that go with the classroom education. Food. I told you they are orphans. They don't have mom and dad. They don't live at school. As soon as these kids came to school, they had big berries. They were sleeping on the bench on the second day, and teachers didn't know what to do. We started a school garden, and a school garden that would help us feed them 2 meals a day. Those 2 meals help the students to start eating at school and concentrate in school. But we also recognized immediately food was not enough to cleanse their bodies. We had to start a health care program and hired a school nurse, which was a revolutionary idea in Uganda still now. In fact, I did this presentation at Harvard, and one woman told me that in 1962, having a nurse in a school, in public schools here, was such a revolutionary idea, and people didn't do it. In Uganda, still, schools don't hire school nurses. We hired one, of course, because living here and seeing what is happening, but the community also asked for it. But when I say health care in our school, it doesn't mean we also have these health care at Nyaka means one cabinet of medicine, like here. Aspirin, chloroquine, injection, and bandage. But health care at Nyaka also means children who would stay home to take care of sick guardians and grandmother now can come to school while our school nurse goes to their homes to take care of those people. Now, instead of girls dropping out of school to take care of grandmother, we are saying send the children to school and we'll send a nurse to you with aspirin. Now, all of a sudden, you would hear in the village people saying, okay, stay here, you have to take care of me, da 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 da. Now all of a sudden you hear, Jackson, go to school and make sure when you get there, the school nurse brings me medicine. They are sending children to school, and we are sending the school nurse to go home and take care of them. Another aspect of health care, which many people don't think about, is when girls get in puberty and they start their periods. In my village, they use plant leaves. That's right, plant leaves. Nyaka has stepped in and started a program for hygiene sanitary products. I did well. My assistant said I should not say pads. Now I said it. But hygiene sanitary products is something that is a barrier to many children, and many people don't even want to discuss it, which we provide to our girls. When you see our graduating class here, you will see that 65% of those are girls. They started and they graduated because we invested in their future, including addressing their sanitary products, which is something people don't talk about. And this picture, of course, will bring in an aspect of volunteers who go from here to help in the health aspects. There is our cabinet. That is our health care unit, all of it. The cabinet right here, and the school nurse, and the medication, and the school records. In 1979, Jackson, growing up in Idi Amin's regime, I fell out of a tree after I argued with my sister, and she told me I can't climb the tree, and I insisted and climbed. And when I got up there, I fell and went in a hospital and spent 6 months in a hospital. 1979, there was one doctor at that hospital. And when we got to the hospital, he was drunk, couldn't do anything to me. 2 days later, when he came to take care of my wound, he said there was no anesthesia in the hospital. 1979. When he operated on me, he gave me a stick to bite on. And I remember every stitch today. 2010, there's still one doctor for 250 people in my village. Look at those numbers. Any nurse practitioner will tell you, you can't see as many people as this in 1 month. That's what our nurse is dealing with. We also looked at this holistic approach: provide health care, provide food, provide music and art as therapy, but also provide opportunities to read. A book that they are going to read in that library we've built in that village is one of them is this book, graced by the picture Ali Toro took when she was volunteering. We've started a culture of reading at such an early level. Many children, including myself, didn't have even a book to read until I was at university. I didn't have a book. Now we have books in this library. That's the building of the library. That's construction still going on. It looks like another campus. It doesn't look as good as Clinton Library. But given there is no other library in this whole area, we can say we've really done a huge, huge job in this area. Teachers use it as a resource from all over the place. We also have an opportunity that shows you the nutrition and the food our children are growing and take care of and harvest and eat and even take home. One of the things in that library are computers. A computer is not something, when Ali was there was no computers at all. Now Nyaka teachers are on Facebook. And when they tell students Facebook, our students don't know what Facebook is. But that is what we are introducing in this area. We recognize that children who are orphaned by HIV/AIDS have to do something about HIV/AIDS themselves. The Anti-AIDS Club uses music as therapy, art as therapy for children who have lost their parents at such a tender age. Explaining to them what HIV/AIDS is without their participation won't crack it. Here they perform, here they sing, and they use music as an expression. In fact, most of their testimonies, how their parents died, have been expressed through music. While Nyaka was still struggling to get its feet on, here comes Jackson, stubborn as I am, saying we are going to start another school in another village called Kutamba. And we started it in a makeshift building right there. What sparked that? A young man walked 50 miles for 2 days from that village to the village where you saw purple uniforms. And when I heard about it, I said, we are going to start a school there. And our board members said, we can't. Nyaka has to be sustainable first. And I remember telling them, Harvard has been here for all these many years, and they are still raising money today. If Harvard is not sustainable, Nyaka cannot be sustainable that quick. And each day that passes, children are dying because they have no opportunity to go to school. We started Kutamba, and that is statistics about Kutamba. As soon as Kutamba started, I'm a faithful Christian man. We prayed about it. One of our board members invited me to Aspen, Colorado, and we had a fundraiser, and we raised all the money we needed to build Kutamba in just 1 weekend. And that's the campus of the second school, Kutamba School. Kutamba means a healer, like healing process. And children select their own uniforms. The reason I say that, people have accused me because I worked at Michigan State that I chose green and white for their uniform. And it is not true. Purple and white, I have never attended Northwestern University or any university that has purple and white. The kids choose their colors and they have a theme why they chose it. And we use the same holistic approach, one by one, to address issues of kids in this village. And you can see their farm. Here's their headmaster. Here are some of their staff. And this brings in the aspect that I'm going to address, and I'll finish on that aspect of grandmothers. Grandmothers who are heroes in any African continent. Women who sold everything they had to send their children to school as an investment so they can take care of them, only for these children to die and leave them like that, alone, fending for themselves. Women who bury their children without finishing grieving them, they still have to take care of children who need to be invested in. These women are left there, abandoned, helpless. Women who taught us how to read and write by telling us stories on their laps, at the fire or on the moon. Women who are the corner of our continent, cornerstones. Nyaka has gone in and organized these women. We said to these women, you can rely on each other. You already know how to live. We organized them in 91 groups in 2 districts. And they told them, just form groups. Get groups of 5, 10, 15, and support each other. While they did that, we also organized them to start giving them what we call a revolving fund or microfinance. $20 for a woman in this village will change their lives forever. Now, before I came here, I passed by the pub in that hotel, and I saw people paying bills, 20, 50, dinner, 150, $20 for these women. This summer, one of the students from here, Adam, that's Adam, and when I talk of my nieces and nephew, this is my brother's son, Stephen, whose dad died when he was 11 years old, now works with the organization, partnered with your student from this school right here on a project where we are going in and building housing for these women. Because that's how they live. When I ask people what they think that is, everyone guesses from something to something. No one ever guesses that is the bathroom, toilet, where this woman has to go at night. That is housing for that woman right there. And what we've got, this house has all holes around all these edges. And when it rains at night, she has to stand up with 14 children until morning before they go to school. We've gone in and we've taken these women from this, and we've started building them houses like this. This is the old house, that's the new house. Building them houses with tinned roof, aluminum tinned roof, and they can sleep in and have a peace of mind, wake up in the morning. This is now our outreach beyond the schools. The school at Nyaka, the school at Kutamba. We've gone in and built a water project for the whole community. We've gone and built a library for the whole community. We've now gone in and built housing for grandmothers who don't even have children in our school, so they can have peace of mind, so they can die happily. And when I talk about the book a little bit, if I still have time, I'll tell you how some of the students, even Scovia, who died from Nyaka, even at the time when she was dying, she's telling her grandmother her happiest moments are the moments she spent at Nyaka, and she wanted to be buried in a school uniform. These grandmothers, even when they pass away, they will tell you their happiest moments are those moments when they get something that they know they will leave for their children. And I leave that picture right there, which describes the pride of a grandmother. This is the pot she cooks in her food. This is her mattress. This is her drinking fountain. This is her storage. And this is her bed. 5 children live in that bed. That picture was taken by Adam and Stephen, a student from here, from this school. So that will give you a little bit of what we do, and maybe a little bit of why God has spared my life. So many times, from that tree to a plane accident 3 days ago in Uganda, where I'm coming back, that there's still a lot of work to do. And that's what brings us here this evening. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'll answer your questions.
Thank you, Jackson. We have time for a couple of questions before we do the book signing. Yes, right over here. Hold on just a minute for the microphone.
Thank you so much. I am a student here at the Clinton School, my first year from Kenya. And just like you, a lot of us, when we grow up, we have that ambition to come to the US, get our education, and stay. And so there's a lot of brain drain. But how can we how do you see us being inspired to go back and to give and to mobilize others to give and to do what you're doing? Because there's very little community philanthropy that happens within us outside of our immediate families. Does that make sense?
Yes, so your question is how do you organize others, and how do you organize others to go back and do something back home? Give them a book. Buy them many copies of this book and give it to them. Because one thing we have to realize, one person can make a difference. And you don't have to be Bill Gates, you don't have to be Oprah Winfrey, you don't have to be Bill Clinton, neither do you have to be Warren Buffett to make a difference. And for those of us who are born in African countries and get an opportunity to come to this great, wonderful country, looking back, we can't turn our backs to our people, because you know better than many people in this room how many people back home are suffering and need a hand. So I think the first thing we could do, if you haven't done anything yet, which I know you do, every immigrant you ever see in this country, by the way, they support so many people back home, whether they are their siblings or their mother or somebody. We send more money back home. Just like many people buy Rotary tickets here, immigrants send back money to help home. But one thing we can do is look at the programs that are already in existence. Get involved. Give them your talents. Give them your time. Volunteer. If you have children, send them back to see these projects so they can grow up knowing there's something out there that you can give, rather than go every summer to Cancun, rather than go to Spain and Europe. You can take one summer in every 5 years and send your children to serve, like Ali did, or anyone did. And if you want to duplicate something like we've done, we have a document that Ali developed, duplicating this type of work in any type of village. It is a PDF file, it is on our website, it's free for anybody to download and do. But I'm serious, reading this book will inspire somebody.
Time for one more question. Yes.
I was wondering how the children are selected for admittance into your schools. How does that work?
How is that done? You see, that's why I told you. I spoke for such a long time, you're not going to get many. to ask many questions. The selection of our students is one of the hardest things for our people to do. Our people is the management committee on the ground, because we select the poorest of the poor. And every person in this village is poor. So when you walk in this village, you will see everybody is poor, including my mother and my father. And if you were handing out aid, you would even hand it to my mother. And really, my mother doesn't need aid. She has a son who's still living. I can help her. But the people on the ground, the leaders, the church leaders, the local retired people, who know the aspects of the family and knows everybody in the village, are the ones who sit down and say, John, you have an uncle called Jackson. You are going to have to wait. We will convince your uncle to take care of you. But here is Scovia, who lives with an 85-year-old grandmother. Should Scovia come to Nyaka first or John? And they will say, Scovia, come first. But still, there are so many of these. We end up having to get the poorest of the poor, the destitute who can't really do anything. But when you get that aspect and look at the passing rate, one student Aria asked me about whether there are students who have ADD, ADHD, HBO, all that stuff. And really, we don't see any of those things in our students. Given an opportunity, love and care and food and health care, every child can succeed, and we have proved that. They are selected on the poorest of the poor. That's the only criteria.